SportsPodcast.
Hello everyone and welcome back into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast for our fourth segment of today's show. We're in the home stretch of my GSMC career. We're going to be previewing a big game in the Eastern Conference, the fourth and final showdown of the season series between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics, taking place tomorrow night, I believe, at TD Garden. Now, these two teams clearly are the beasts of the East. The Cleveland Cavaliers, an incredible offseason fueled by astute signings, the maturation of certain players already established in their squad, like Darius Garland, like Evan Mobley, has led them to be one of the most balanced teams in terms of rotation in the NBA this season, and has led them to the NBA's best record thus far. And the Boston Celtics, defending champs, coming into the season looking to make a stamp on the Eastern Conference for the next several years. A championship window wide open, facing some roadblocks though early. Porzingis injured for most of the campaign, facing a lot of injuries in fact. Brown, Holiday, even Tatum throughout the season still have the NBA's second best record at the very least in the East. But in terms of how the series now looks, the Cleveland Cavaliers just want to get to the finish line, number one, in the Eastern Conference. And they would deserve that number one spot. But the Boston Celtics are the team in the East, to me, that really has the ultimate chance to knock them down a peg. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, they still have a lot of things to tweak. There are still problems with their superstars. I don't buy into any of that. My humble opinion about the Celtics team is that on their day, they can beat anyone. And it may not happen as much in the regular season as you would like, but I guarantee you, in the playoffs, they're going to be on fire. And so, that's why this matchup to me may not seem as important as a lot of people think, but in my mind, it's the only way for the Celtics to catch the Cavs, and that's why I'm presenting it. Because the Celtics are, 6.5 games back now. They had that bizarre loss to the Pistons a couple nights ago. And Cleveland is an 8-straight win streak after the All-Star break. So, ultimately, you're going to have a Celtics team who had a baffling loss coming back home and going against the Cavs team who's red hot. But ultimately, why I think the Celtics can still be competitive in this game at the very least is because they lead the season series, and I think that the Cavs are a team that you need to go toe-to-toe with. And when you go toe-to-toe with the Cavs, that's where maybe you pull out a win. In all three of these games, if I remember correctly, they were all very close. They were all determined by a couple of plays swinging one team's way. So that's how I feel this game is going to be. But then, if you look at potential, say, Eastern Conference Finals match between these two teams, that's where I feel longevity is going to matter. And so, if I'm the Celtics, I wouldn't necessarily be too worried about seeding, but I do want to win this game just to show Cleveland that in a postseason setting, this could very well happen again. And over a 7-game period, on every other night, it's going to lead to you tiring a little bit more. It's going to lead to questions about your rotation depth. And thus, it's going to be much harder in that setting to beat us again. Because they have that one win over them this season. But when it gets to postseason, it's a different animal entirely. So that's why this game, in my opinion, holds so much magnitude. Because if the Cavs win, and we ultimately get this series as an Eastern Conference Finals, semifinals, what have you, it proves that they can go toe-to-toe with each other. And it proves that Cleveland is deep enough to challenge the Celtics every other night in a 7-game series. But right now, the Celtics win this game. Even if they don't go on and reel off enough wins to ultimately be the number one seed in the Eastern Conference and have Cleveland lose X amount of games to fall to second, I still think that it's a notice to the league that the team to look out for in the East isn't just Cleveland, it's Boston. They're still the top dogs. And comparing this to, say, what could happen in the Western Conference, I feel both of these teams are set up for success in the NBA Finals as well. Because, let's face it, even though Cleveland would be in that setting for the first ever time, they're deep enough to challenge any team that could come out of the West. And I guarantee you that there are several teams in the West that are going to have a lot of questions asked of them when they get to the NBA Finals. If the Thunder, are they too young? Is it their year right now? For, say, the Nuggets, will Jokic have to carry them to the championship much like he did a couple of years ago again? If it's the Rockets, same thing with the Thunder, except on a much grander scale. If it's the Lakers, yeah, they can score on you, but will they defend you enough to keep you down for a 7-game series, nonetheless? And the Celtics, they're the reigning champs. They hold a lot of weight in the postseason, no matter who they face. And so, that's why, when we compare this regular season series to the postseason series, it's either going to be a lot closer than we expect, or one team's going to take a stranglehold of that postseason series, if it should happen. So, for this fourth and final showdown, what I want to learn about both teams is this. For the Cavaliers, to start off with, can you go into TD Garden, disrupt the rhythm of the Celtics team, and most importantly, prove that you're a lot deeper than them by going, say, 8 to 10 deep and throwing out a lot of different looks at them and really challenge them toe-to-toe to match you, outscore you? And then if I'm the Celtics, I have to rely on the formula that was set forth last season. They won games with the team mentality. They won games by 3-point shooting well. They won games ultimately because no one star was greater than the other. And so, if they put forth a complete performance against Cleveland at home and prove they're not shaken by them on their home court, that says a lot. It speaks volumes, even if it's only one game in the chase for the 1 seed. Let's talk about the 1 seed most importantly, because I'm going to pull up the Eastern Conference standings here and show you how potentially unimportant being the 1 seed could be. So let's do this experiment here. Pulling up the Eastern Conference standings because I'm actually a little bit more unfamiliar with the Eastern Conference over the Western Conference, just because there's a lot more teams that you have to know in the Western Conference. So right now, as it stands, the Cavs would face any one of, I believe, in the play-in, the Heat, the Hawks, the Bulls, and the Nets, I believe, would get into the play-in tournament. The Celtics right now would be faced against the Magic, a team that defensively can hurt you on any given night. So, ultimately, it would be no real challenge, in my opinion, for either team going up against those two squads. But, let's say, down the line, a team like Indiana or Milwaukee starts to play well on the stretch in the regular season. Maybe even the Knicks get rolling, even though they're 0-7, and I believe 0-4 against both the Cavs and the Celtics this season. Here's why that could be a concern. Because let's say it's the Eastern Conference quarterfinals, and the Cavs are matched up against the Pacers or Bucks, and the Celtics are matched up against the other team. To me, that series could go a little bit longer than people might think. And if it does, that could call into question both of these teams' depth, which to me is the greatest X factor in their separation. So, if, say, the Cavs get into a battle in the Eastern Conference quarterfinals with the Pacers or Bucks, and so do the Celtics with the other team, then for potential semi or finals matchup, that's going to call into question how deep you really are. And if, to me, it were the Celtics who got pushed more, I would actually be a bit more concerned than it would be with the Bucks. Just because the Celtics have a more concrete strategy that's a little bit more boom or bust than Cleveland. Because Cleveland's strategy is that they are deep. Is that they can throw a lot of different looks at you. Whereas the Celtics strategy is to shoot the lights out and try and put up as many 3-point shots and win the math game. So, to me, that strategy could be a little bit more ineffectual if they get a little bit knocked down a peg in the first couple of rounds of the postseason. But let's get back to this fourth and final showdown in the regular season, because the Celtics lead this season series 2-1. If the Celtics win, even if it's not as convincingly as you would like from them, it goes to show that the Celtics still have the ultimate strategy to win games in the NBA, and ultimately win games when it matters. But if the Cavs win, it's a knotted season series, and it gives you the blueprint as to how these two teams will game plan for that potential postseason matchup. If the Cavs win, that gives them all the impetus to get the 1 seed, build momentum, and go into all their series in the postseason amped and ready to go. If the Celtics win, there's a seed of doubt in your mind that 3 nights in June you could go into TD Garden and rattle the Celtics as the defending national champs in their home court. So this game holds a lot of magnitude in how I will be viewing that potential postseason series, because everything changes if the Celtics win this game, even if it's not as convincingly as a lot of people might like. If the Cavs win, it's game on, and they have the ball in their own court and hold the destiny of the Eastern Conference in their hands as well, as all things would run through Cleveland. So that's my message to this team in Cleveland. Don't let Boston, both the court and the team, get into your head. And if you don't, well, like I said, game on in the postseason. But let me know what you think in the comments about this fourth and final meeting between these teams in the regular season and potential postseason matchup, what it could look like. Is coming next. We talk about my favorite sport in the world to conclude my time here at the GSMC Sports Network, talking about a very important game in the top 6, Nottingham Forest and Man City, this weekend, right after this short break.